This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back in, or welcome into for the first time this season, the Giraffe Room. My name is Jake Neverman, and I'll be here all season long with my co-host, Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And if you haven't seen us on the fast break, already our predictions out, Western Conference, Eastern Conference awards, everything, our preseason, literally everything is out on the fast break. But on this podcast specifically, we will be talking about the game, college game, the international game. We might dab in a little high school because, you know, Advanced versus the Boozer Twins the other day was kind
of hype.
It was pretty hype. It was pretty hype. Before we get into everything, today we'll be discussing our 1.0 big board, so it'll be a lot of us yapping, if we're being honest. It'll be a lot of that about a lot of different prospects. Down below in the description, please do check out the Patreon page. You can watch this recording live. We are live on Patreon right now as we're recording it. Also, we do that with the fast break, the onside kick. Dave and I will have exclusive content coming to the Patreon during the season as well, mostly giraffe stuff as well. And also, the Discord is down below. There's an NBA draft section. It is free to join. Join the community. Call us out in our takes. Give us your big boards, who you like, who you don't like. Also, leave it down in the comments. Leave a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, and also hit that bell if you want to get notified every single time that we do post a video. Or, you know, if some of us get bored and go live during the season, that'll probably happen at some point. We'll do watch-alongs probably at some point. A bunch of different stuff. We have a bunch of ideas in the pipeline I'll go with. But yeah, today we're going to be discussing our 1.0 big boards. I know to Dave's dismay, we are only doing 30 players today.
I'm just saying, like, when you got a list of, like... I think I was at like 230 last time I counted. Like I pretty much had like D1 plus, you know, like amount of players.
Yep.
But it's tough because you don't know what you're going to get with so many of these prospects. So when you're looking at, you know, the NBL, when you're looking at about 5 different leagues going on in Europe, you got to include, you know, a certain Chinese league for one specific player, maybe. You got to look everywhere. I mean, you got to look at the G League still. There is still a member of the SIGNUP down there.
There is.
So there's a lot of places you got to be paying attention to for basketball prospects. And hopefully we're going to bring them all together into this one nice place called the Draft Room for you.
Yeah, and today we'll be doing, like I said, 30 players, not 30 through 11. 30 players. This is going to be the most discrepancy you've probably seen at any of our big boards. There's going to be players that Dave has that I don't have. There's might be players I have that Dave doesn't have. And there's going to be a lot of players probably that I might have a player in the 20s and Dave might have them in the top 10, because that's what a 1.0 is, genuinely.
It is players that we forgot about because we had to narrow the list down so much and so many times over.
There's 100% going to be players that we miss out, and I will say probably not for the 1.0, but as we get deeper in the season, if we get enough comments on our big boards and our mock drafts, we will do mailbags. So if you guys have questions, concerns, whatever, down below, or join the Discord and pop us in there and you can add us straight away. I'm marginal contact in the Discord and Dave is Dave. So but yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Dave, give me your 30 through 21.
You gave out a lot of warnings, and I'm going to give out one more warning. I feel like this list is a lot of players who, you know, it's hard to project what they're going to be at any given point in this year. So some of these names are names that I'm throwing in there because I feel like I want to mention them out the gates. And they might not actually be the number 30 guy on my big board, but I feel like shout out necessary.
I am also, and I'm fair warning, I'm going to butcher so many names.
Oh, yeah.
Even like there's a guy that goes to Duke. That's name is like Knipple or whatever his name is.
On Knipple.
I have said that wrong for 2 weeks now. So, yeah. All right, Dave, hit me off.
Okay. At number 30, I've got Scotty Middleton. At 29, Mackenzie Mbako. At 28, Carter Knox. At 27, shout out from last year, Nick Clifford. At 26, Sam Walters. 25, Colin Murray Boyles. 24, Michael Ajay. 23, Will Riley. 22, Dink Pate. 21, Rocco Zakarski.
All right, yeah.
And I think that's all this section.
That's interesting. I think I heard just a couple names. This is so for those of you who don't know, shout out Retro and Soapy. They have been my draft guides, because last year I kind of was the first year I was actually like the last 2 years I was like, I'm going to take a break from the draft because I did so much draft stuff the couple years before that I was so burnt out. Like if you go back and check out our 2021 NBA draft content, I was doing hour-long mocks. I was doing hour-long mocks by myself. I was, and you know, that was, I nailed some of those picks, I got to say, you know, shout out. But yeah.
We all got those picks.
Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to butcher about 3 of these names, but
Let's hear it.
if I miss players, blame Retro and Soapy. At number 30, I have KJ Lewis. At number 29, I have Michael Ruzick. At number 28, I have Alex Tuhey.
Yep. Tui.
Tui, there you go. At number 27, I have Will Riley. At number
Yep.
26, I have Darion Reed. At number 25, I have Knipple. I always forget how to say his name. Knipple. Number 24, I have Liam McNeely. Number 23, I have Hugo Gonzalez. Number 22, Carter Bryant. And number 21, Donnie Freeman. So there's some players that overlap. So let's start there.
Yep.
I honestly, you have a couple players. Rocco and Carter Knox are coming up on my list, so we can save them for the next segment because we'll have them there. But actually, you know what? Just give me somebody. The lower guys in your list, honestly, I don't have that much knowledge about. So if there's one that you want to spew some.
So yeah, at the guy I slid in the list, Scotty Middleton. Last year, Ohio State, he ended up playing a handful of minutes, like the whole season. I think he had been coming in as like a ranked RSCI, like 50 to 60 kind of wing. He's a really good shooter. He just had to grow into his body, and Ohio State didn't have minutes for him, so he transferred out. I fully expect him, obviously new team, new role. He's already had like an interview, talked to, his new coach, put it on the record. It's like, look, Seton Hall has an opportunity for you to be more you and get minutes out there. Cause I don't know if he averaged, let me double check his average. Yeah, he was averaging like 15 minutes, but it was not a whole lot of role on that team. So for a player with his shooting, like, I want to say like reputation going into college, I feel like Ohio State just wasn't a match for like, let's showcase your opportunity. And the positions he got put into weren't great. So he's a 6'6" wing, good shot, backdoor cutter. Like he's exactly like the kind of like high level role player that I would hope for. And then I'm hoping to see like at Seton Hall on what should be a pretty decent team this year. Like he should have an opportunity to shine out and be something.
Yeah, I find it interesting, right? Because especially in a 1.0, I've never, even when I was doing the draft content back then, I've never actually participated in a 1.0. But it's interesting because there's players that I have. You've watched everybody. I know you're a sicko, so I understand. My education has been starting about 2.5 weeks ago. So I mean, yeah, I think one of the points that you made is that college is. It's very big about fit now with NIL and everything. Is that people can jump ship. So there's a guy who have not played on a top team last year. He's out to Seton Hall, like you said, this year. And now he could easily jump up to a first-round prospect if he has a great year. And I know you said you don't know if you might have slid him in. So you might be a second-round guy. I mean, like,
he's somebody who I had last year is like, this is an outside chance of like, he can pop off at Ohio State. But again, like I said, Ohio State's offense was run through one man, and it was not named Scotty Middleton. So that's fine. Like after that, though, Mackenzie Mbako is someone who big, strong wing. Rough start to last year, finished well, leading into like the end of the season for Indiana. He actually ended up staying with Indiana, which in the NIL days, that's incredibly rare. Okay. But he's like a 6'8", like jacked wing. I think he's like 225-ish.
Love that.
And he has like that combination of like, he will work in the paint with the ball, but also he can take threes. And like, that's the thing it's going along with his game. But I like 6'8" guys who can score on multiple levels, and his rim play is pretty solid. But he just muscles guys in the paint and gets advantages, gets to the line some. So like he's someone who I think not only his college game is good, but I don't know if I'm going to use the line already. Yep. I don't know if you watch much of Indiana last year.
No, I haven't.
But Malik Renew was like the guy who the ball ran through, and obviously Khalil Ware was like their offensive, like we're going to dump everything off to. Okay. Like he was the, big scorer. So like between the two of those were like the two focal points of the offense. And Mackenzie was supposed to be right there with them. It took him through the most of the year to catch up to like where he should be kind of offensively. So I'm really excited for him. Continue through with high volume. Like there's a couple of, I think 2 transfers in at Indiana, but like he is the number 1 guy in my mind as far as like just he's a strong 3-level wing. And if he can keep going, I kind of just, I think you'll notice a trend here. The guys under 6'5" are not many on my list.
I was going to say. I'll mention the first guy on my list was KJ Lewis, Arizona guards. He's 6'4", so he's not 6'5". I assume he didn't make your list?
He did not make my list. Okay. I can tell you right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my reasoning from the stuff that I watched from him is super energetic guard. I wouldn't say crazy bouncy, but he is one of the things that I was impressed is that he really knows how to control tempo. What's the word I'm looking for? Initiating. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really knows how to control tempo while initiating. Really, he actually snakes the pick and roll more than most guards that I watched in this already. Kind of a high energy guy as well, because I saw a lot of offensive rebounding, a lot of second chance points, and just beating people to the ball, I would say. So I was impressed. I mean, and when I'm looking at the back end of first round prospects, I'm just looking at, can I find a role in this guy this guy in the NBA?
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that this guy is gonna. I don't think he's like a starter long term or anything like that, but I liked his shot motion. It looked good. And I just thought an energetic guard who's 6'4", has a little bounce, can control the tempo, and can make shots. I was like, that's a guy who could get taken in the first round and play for somebody.
So do you see him? And this is not like,
no, you're good.
For those who haven't seen me and Jake talk about prospects, or Jake and I talk about prospects, it's going to seem a little adversarial at times when we question picks. And I'm not trying to come in with like whatever, but he's someone who I question like role at the next level. Like you mentioned, he can go downhill and snake pick and roll, and like that's great. But at 6'4", if you're not a primary creator, you have to, in my mind, if you're not primary creator, you have to be an efficient scorer. And I think that this year he has to show out that he can take volume threes, which is not really part of his game right now. Is that a concern for you? Or do you think that he's going to go the other way and become more of a creator on that offense after guy who left to go play for Illinois from Arizona, and I've already blanked on his name.
That's going to happen a lot. That's going to happen a lot.
Literally Illinois. I know, it's going to take me a minute. I apologize.
I'll answer, though. I think, I don't know if I see him as a primary creator, so I think he's going to have to improve his scoring. I mean, he was at about 35% from three. It wasn't at a high volume, obviously.
Island Boswell,
yes. So it wasn't at a high volume, obviously, so we'll have to see this year. I don't know. I have a soft spot, and you'll see this with my rankings of guards who can kind of do a little bit of everything, but aren't great at anything. You know what I mean? I just think like, he has a good frame. Obviously 6'4". He's not one of those, you love 5'10" guards who try to put
I
into the ladder.
specifically went into this draft class.
You're like, I'm not doing it?
Don't be Dave this
You're
year.
Not do it?
Don't do it.
No
don't be Dave. Don't fall in love with someone who is under 6'1",
you do it.
who is going to have some issue very clearly outside of maybe the game of basketball that will affect his stock.
Hey, shout out Tyrell Terry and shout out Sharif Cooper. Those are two Daves. He poisoned me with the Sharif Cooper too. It was bad because even I had him like top 15 because you poisoned me.
Talented.
Yeah, but you poisoned
me. But he does not care about basketball enough to be good.
And that's kind of a worry.
It says a lot. Like a lot of these guys, they don't get here without being extremely talented. Like this is not a sport where you can just like lazy your way into the NBA.
Yep.
But at college, if you were that kind of a star prospect leading up to college, you can play college and still be a stud. But the jump from college to the pros is massive.
Yeah.
And you can't get away with that. It shows very clearly who's putting in work and who's not.
So the next guy I'll ask you, is Michael Ruzick on your board? Is he higher or is he not on your board?
He just missed out on my first round.
Okay,
I do think that he's probably first round talent.
Yeah, I agree.
But I want to see more play from him. It's more of a situation of I wanted to showcase some names on this list, and I think that he's someone who, well, not to sound smart, but like
I know.
I feel like he's going to get talked about for the majority of the year. And I think some of these fringe guys have a chance to, like, I'm afraid guys like Sam Walters, Will Riley, Michael Ajay might fall out of this first round. So I want to talk about them now because I might not get a chance to until we hit like the full 2-round mocks.
That's fair. But I think he is probably a first round prospect. He started out lower on my board when I was going through people, but then every single time I went back and watched him a little bit, I know Soapy likes him a lot more than I do. I was like, there's a role for him. Obviously with the 7-foot wingspan, but he also can stretch the floor. He kind of can do a little bit of everything. I don't know exactly what his ceiling is going to be, but I feel like there's a role, especially when I think he's 6'9", 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, something like that, and you can shoot the ball. There's somebody out there that can get you minutes in the NBA. I don't know what his exact role is going to be. We'll see this year with his development, but his shot mechanics look good. Defensively, we'll see. I think that's
a lot of guys on this list.
Yeah, defensively, we'll see. There's only like 2 or 3 where I'm like, they're dogs. They're dogs, and one of them's in my next section. We'll talk about it. But I don't know. I guess it's a wait and see with him. I think it's with a lot of prospects, and you hear that us say that. But when it piques my interest when I see a guy who's 6'8", 6'9", whatever, and 7 feet tall, has a good shooting stroke and can put the ball on the floor as well. So he's not going to be like a creator or anything like that. But if you go with him as a 3 or a 4 into a lineup and you play him, he kind of can play next to anybody. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Honestly, Sam Walters is kind of like, he's a 6'10 guy who's a wing, who's a floor spacer. Left Alabama, surprisingly, to go to play for Michigan. And I'm not quite sure if he's going to end up starting out the gates. I think he is going to be part of their best lineups.
Okay.
But they did pay a bunch of cash to bring in an NIL recruit who also plays the 4. So at 6'10, he's like a nice floor spacing, catch and shoot big who can also work a little bit in the paint. So, like, again, I'm like 6'10 wings who can shoot. I think he had 99 attempts from 3 last year, and he hit him at a 39% rate. So, like, pretty good volume, good shooter, good free throw shooter. I think, free throw, only 40 attempts. Again, for a 6'10 guy, I'd like to see more, but the way that Alabama used him was basically very similar. Like, I found him by watching Jaren Stevenson. Jaren Stevenson has the higher rep at Alabama for being like, hey, he's a 6'10 wing who ends up playing more wing than big for them, but he's kind of like a tweener. And I'm like, yeah, but Sam keeps knocking down shots, and the offense clicks way better when he's out there. And I'm just like, as much as I want to like buy into Jaren's stock because he has like some defensive interests, some, the tweener aspects, like, I will just take a pure 6'10 shooter who's got a better free throw, better 3, more volume. Like, he earned his minutes, doesn't turn over the ball as much. He doesn't try to do as much with it, which trade-off. But, like, let's be honest, if I'm drafting someone in the late 20s or, let's say middle second round, I'm looking for a role player who can fill a specific niche, and he's got potential NBA level skills on the offensive side when it comes to floor spacing at that height and that size.
Well, I think it's interesting because this class, there's a clear top like 2-3 tiers, right? Like this class, when we get into the top 10, they're all like, I think there's probably like 11 and 12 prospects in this draft that separate themselves from everybody else. We'll get into those names, but like these bottom guys, I'm just looking for like, do you have skills that are translatable, right? Are you a guy who can play with other people? Because when you I'm not looking to get, and I shout out, I'm not trying to find a Nick Claxton down here right now. I'm trying to find a guy who can plug and play in lineups and isn't a detriment.
I got Rocco here.
I have Rocco almost, so it's okay. We can actually start the Rocco conversation because I'm going to have him right in my next section, so I have no problem talking about him now. I'll start. I watched Rocco, and shout out Retro. He is big on Rocco, obviously, as another Australian. And again, this was before I knew this year that he really hasn't played much yet, that he's been benched for most of the year. It's only
he's coming off the bench.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry. Not when I say bench, it sounds a little bit more dramatic than it is.
It does. I was gonna say he's playing behind one of the better centers in the NBL, to be fair.
Yeah, but I think he's good. I think he could be an NBA center. But one of the comparables that I was looking at is Derek Lively, just because a guy who's height, who doesn't have like. But Lively's more athletic. I'm not comparing them player to player. Let me shout that out real quick. But kind of a role that we saw Derek Lively play last year, which was semi-limited with the Mavs. Can you play off ball? Can you be a screen setter, a roller, a rim protector, and then a rebounder? I think Rocco can do a lot of those things. I'm just worried about what Rocco can grow his game into, right? Because I don't know. Like Derek Lively, you look at him, he's already ball handling. He has a shot and all that, right? But that's why I'm trying to like be comparable with them because they're both centers above 7 feet. They don't have like Derek Lively has the crazy athleticism while Rocco kind of, I see him jump off the ground and I kind of like twinge a little bit. It's kind of,
and you're like, I could slide a piece of paper under there, maybe 3 sheets.
Exactly. I just think he's super limited. That's just my only concern with him when he's coming to the next level.
Yeah, I completely understand and I agree. There's a lot to like about anybody who's 7'2" and who can, rim protect and run. But like, yeah, I think that anybody who has long-term bets on him being able to be like a modern 5 and stretch the floor for any distance is on some hardcore copium at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's going to fall out of the first round purely because there are just a limited number of true bigs in this class. Somebody who didn't make my first round, but I think talent-wise is close, is Janai Broom. And he is a 6'10" big who plays for Auburn, and he is a floor spacer. He is somebody who offensive hub and really smart player, but 6'10". He's not that rim protector. And I think that's the problem is like I look at the levels of like, how many guys are true like old school centers versus like modern centers versus small balls. And it's like the way you scope it out, it's like as far as rim protectors go, like there's not many great rim protectors that are expected in this class. Maybe if you believe in Zvonimir's brother, who's playing for Illinois, blanking on Avizic, Tomislav Avizic. He moves a little slower, so I'm not sure. Like even Rocco makes him look slow, kind of situation.
Which is impressive.
So yeah, a little concerned. Like he's a true rim. He's old school big. And then outside of that, there's a handful of guys. Like if you believe a Daimar can come back and like not look completely overwhelmed by anybody who weighed more than like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Maybe he's another European big who got overmatched last year. But there's not that many 7 foot plus rim runners. So I think that's where the value in Rocco is. You're investing in like a lottery chip or lottery ticket. And hoping that, hey, worst case scenario, this guy can play 10 minutes off the bench for me.
Well, if you want,
and he'll be something.
If you watch Trey Jackson-Davis play for the Warriors, right, his game is also super limited, right? He doesn't like do he doesn't do a lot outside of. Yeah, but he can, but he doesn't for them, right? For the Warriors, he kind of just runs the role of. I mean, I don't want to say it, but like we've seen limited centers in the past run for them, like Festus Ezeli and Kevon Looney and all those players, right? You set screens, you roll. You're at the rim as a jumper. Like, he can jump, but obviously better than Kevon Looney, which is not hard.
Well, at this point, Kevon Looney is held together with screws and duct tape.
Looney kid. But yeah, I kind of see that similar role for Rocco, and then we see if he can expand beyond that when he gets to the NBA. It's a lot of fit, right? Because you have to end up with a coach who knows. Like, if he ends up with Chauncey Billups, oh no. Because like you have to end up with a coach who knows how to use your limited skill set, because there is a skill set there to be used in the NBA for him. That's why I kept him in the middle of the first round for me, because I still think he is still a first round prospect in this draft, even though he is limited. Just because, like you said, there's not a lot of great centers in this draft. That is the one thing. This is definitely the weak spot, is the big man. I mean, unless you want to call Cooper Flag a big man, but
no, not quite.
He's like the tweener.
But
right?
I mean,
he's like the 3-4 tweener.
Look at the Grizzlies this year. They took Zach Edey. Yeah. He fouled out in 15 minutes in the first game. 14 minutes.
Impressive.
All right. Well, they rounded up. And we got to see a lot of run from Jay Huff, who has continued to build his game in the G League and dominate there as a defensive big who has grown an offensive shot. And it's like, that's maybe a path for somebody like Rocco, where it's like, hey, look, maybe day one you're not ready because, again, he's not getting 30 minutes a night in the NBL. So it's just going to take time and experience working with an NBA staff and NBA rosters and building up his skill set to match what a team can be, because Jay Huff is like 26-ish.
I feel
like he's way older than I thought.
I'm so happy somebody gave him a shot. That's what I was going to say.
Same.
So happy, because he is clearly like a guy, though, who, I mean, out of college, he looked super not limited, but he did not look like an NBA prospect. Goes down to the G League, wins back-to-back Defensive Player of the Years, I believe it was, in the G League, learns to stretch the floor consistently, and now he's on a top 6-7 team in the West, right? That is competing for a playoff spot every year. So shout out Jay Huff. I mean, he deserves some love. Give me a name from your list that you want to talk about.
I'll go contentious on my end. Colin Murray Boyles. He is someone who a lot of people really love. And I've got somebody who's similar to him in a much higher position on my board who made it into my top 10, who I think has been overlooked by way too many people, like disrespectfully so. But Colin Murray Boyles, for those who don't know, is a tank. He's like 6'7", and plays center. And that might be a conflict. And for me, that's a bit of a negative. He has a crazy long wingspan, though, so he makes up for it. He's got a great reach. Like, he does what he can with his body, and he has gotten stronger in the offseason. Even reports are saying, like, hey, the classic, he put on, 10 pounds of muscle line, that kind of stuff. He's a guy who didn't need to typically. He is extremely limited, though, offensively. He has a softer touch within a couple feet of the rim, but he cannot shoot to save his life. And that is, again, when you are 6'7", and you can't shoot, and your defense in the paint is good to above average, let's say, for your role, but then there's just limitations of you're 6'7", and it doesn't matter how much of a good offensive decision maker you are. Sometimes people are like, oh, he's kind of like Draymond, he could do this, he could do, and they're envisioning a way to make a square peg fit a round hole.
It does, yeah.
And I look at him and I'm just like, literally my lasting memory of him is him just getting murked out there in the tournament by N'Faly Dantley. And look, a real center who was barely good enough to make it in the NBA. I mean, again, it was injuries. I really am rooting for him. I think he can be. Again, kind of like Jay Huff is hey, if he has a healthy year, he can build on that.
Yeah.
And N'Faly's, he's a very good center. He was a senior at that time. So I was like, hey, true big versus 6'7" center. Let's see what happens. And, oh, guess what? The big won by a lot. And like, just it was a lopsided affair. And I'm like, so if you can't compete with a guy who's barely getting drafted, how are you a valuable prospect to me? Like, how are you going to magically do that if you don't have an outside shot? Because I'm like, okay, you're 6'7". You should either be like PJ Tuckering this or
not being a center. That's the answer.
Yeah.
But Colin Roberto did not make my list. He's at like 32 or 33 for me. I'm
actually so proud of that.
I was watching his game, and Retro loves to do this guy, and he said the Draymond thing. And as soon as I see that, I go, okay, so I need to see elite defense, elite ball mover on offense, like anything of that. And I saw literally none of that. I saw none of. I honestly don't think he does anything well from the tape I watched. He does not move amazingly as you would think for a 6'7" guy. He's a little bit bottom heavy is the word I would use.
Yep. He's thick.
Can't shoot. No. He's a fine passer, but if you're going to be 6'7", a little bit slow and need to be a mover, and you can't shoot, I need to see like elite passing. And that's why I hate the Draymond comparison, because Draymond can shoot. That whole thing of like every player who's undersized and plays defense and plays the 5 is now compared to Draymond. Or
Grant Williams is like the worser version. And even Grant had like a 12-footer that he could rely on in college at Tennessee. Yeah. So
I just think it's disingenuous to Draymond, honestly. I think the comps are just so easily thrown out there.
It's gotten disrespectful.
It has gotten a little bit disrespectful. Like
he's late career Draymond.
Yeah, late career Draymond. No, he's not even that though. Like even Draymond now, I was watching him and I kept like, this guy's a first round prospect. Like I just don't see.
I'm in love with him.
I don't see it. I don't see it translating. I maybe that's my hot take.
I think he's a dominating college player. That's kind of where I landed on him.
That's where probably I would land on him too. But even when I watched his college tape, I wasn't like, wow, what a guy, what a dominating force down there in the paint. I just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think he's a first round prospect, and I really feel like the only way he's going to succeed in the NBA is if he ends up on the exact right position and the exact right team with the exact right coach and the exact right scenario. And when that has to happen, unless your potential is like superstar, I don't really want to take the risk on you. You know what I mean? And that's kind of why
we just watched the offensive version of him get sent to China.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Kenny Lofton. He was. I still stand by that. His 8-minute cameo for the Sixers last year might be the worst 8 minutes I've ever seen somebody play in a Sixers uniform. It was bad. Somebody I want to touch on, is Hugo Gonzalez in your list?
No.
Okay, so let's get that conversation.
Someone who I love European players. I'm a big fan of scouting their game because it's played completely differently than college basketball. Typically slower pace, less reliance on iso ball. It's more like passing scheme system. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we're going to have to hope that he's going to get like 10 minutes a night is already one like limitation on where he could go, because as a player, he's awesome with energy. Like he is, I will throw my body in the line of fire to save, a ball to keep it in bounds. Like, I think he's above average defender, hella hustle. And I think that his basketball IQ is decently high. Like he tries to make the right passes sometimes, even if it's a situation where it's like a dangerous pass. Like he just kind of has that extra whatever. He's like, I can make this work kind of thing.
Yep.
But for a guy with no shot, it's very tough for me to project him forward. I watched his U18 tournament. I watched him play the previous season. And so far this season, he's had one performance where he actually got to try to shoot and play, more than 6 minutes. But I find it very difficult to buy the shot. And I think for someone who has his capabilities, I almost kind of want him to stay in Europe for one more year.
Yeah, I can see that. And
go to a team where he has a larger role. Yeah. Will he do that? Or maybe he'll just have a larger role on his team next year due to like contracts and whatever working out the way it could. But I just think that it's not as bad as like Rocco being held behind like the best guy and a center in the position. But like, it's just, they don't care about prospects. The goal is to win games, and he is, a defensive switchable stopper.
Yeah, that's why I definitely had him higher when I first started, and then he slowly started as I watched more and more prospects go down. He ended up at 23. I guess the 23 is a little bit more hope that the shot can kind of come along, because it's kind of like it's kind of the same thing back a couple years when we watched Matisse Thybulle, is that like we're like, this defense is so good that if he can just become like 30% from the field, he can find a role in the NBA. I just think he's a guy who does a lot of things okay, and then his defensive game is above average, like you said. I don't know if I'd put him in the elite category, but I'd put him in the above average category. And obviously a wingspan.
I mean, you don't see Josh Hart.
Yeah, Josh Hart's a pretty good comparison, but like it took Josh Hart. But I don't know. Josh Hart is like, I don't know. It's tough though, because Josh Hart is the kind of guy who makes like, you need a winning play, Josh Hart's there to make it. You know what I mean? And that's something I won't be able to tell from Hugo until he gets into the NBA game and starts playing big minutes, if that ever happens. Yeah. So I think his shot mechanics aren't terrible. It looks like he's more pushing from the face than he is lifting in his shot. It kind of looks more like a push. And if that can get fixed, it is just one of those things. His mechanics don't look as junky as other players that we've seen. They don't look terrible. It's not
totally broken. Yeah. They're guys.
Oh, it's not Matisse Thybulle who I'm seeing shoot like this and like elbows out and all that and all that. Like his feet are okay. I was watching a little bit of tape because I think it's Retro that likes him a lot. Like his feet are a little bit wider than they should be every time off the catch. Again, pushing from the face, it looks like a little bit. So I'll be interested to see if that gets adjusted over the next year. I think NBA shot doctors are miracle workers, some of them. We've seen them. Amen Thompson last night, he looked a little bit better from the corner. We'll see Asar when he comes back from the blood clots. Like, I think Hugo, there's potential inside there, but I've seen this player so many times come through the draft where they don't end up being good. You know what I mean? So that's my only concern, is that I've seen the wing prototypes where this has to go right and this has to go right and this has to go right, and none of it goes right. And then they're out in the league within like 3 to 4 years. So
exactly.
But there is a team that'll take a shot on him. Like this Hugo screams to me the guy that either, like you said, he stays overseas for 1 year longer, or he comes over and he's in the G League for a year. Kind of like the Pacers. The Grizzlies kind of took with Zaire Williams and kind of easing him in the first year, and then eventually they realized that brother stinks. Let's get him out of here. And
what about draft and stash for a couple of years?
Yeah, but then
like a certain guard for New York.
Well, I don't think Rokas is ever coming over to this point. It honestly pisses me off. Rokas is clearly good enough to play in the NBA, and they're just like, no, we like Campaign. Campaign's good. Yeah, it's just it's crazy to me.
That hurts me.
But yeah, I think Hugo would be interesting. If he does draft and stash though, I think the team's going to want him to sign somewhere, like you said, he has a bigger role, because that's going to be super important in his development. Because international ball, and it's kind of Rokas fell a little bit victim to this as well when he went to Barca, is like you get 5 shots a game, and you better make like 3 or 4 of those, or else that's going to go down to 4 shots, and that's going to go down as 3 shots. Like that's how it goes internationally, because international offenses are so minute, down to the minute detail, that like you're going to get this shot here and you better make it, because you've practiced it and you're open and you know you're going to get the shot. So make the shot. And if you don't, those minutes are going to be gone real quick, because international ball, they pump people out that can fill roles. Because nobody.
There's one team, and we'll talk about 2 of their players later in this class, where it's just like Ulm is. Yeah. We're like, hey, we're going to buy prospects and we're going to capitalize on name value. Yeah. And that's cool. I'm hoping more teams might be interested in doing that in the future.
I'm with that. That's great. Yeah. Ulm was great. The game, we'll talk about Seraph and...
the worst cameras in the world.
Yeah. Is it Noah and
Noah
Seraph? Right? Yeah, Noah and Seraph. Yep. But yeah, all right. Is there anybody else in your 21 through 30 that you want to talk about?
2 guys, very similar as far as both shooting wings, Will Riley and Knox.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if you had both of them in this section as well.
Will Riley in 27. Carter Knox will be in my next section.
Okay, so let's do Will Riley then, and we'll leave Carter for the next, and we'll wrap this section up. Will Riley, Canadian player, came down to Illinois on what is hopefully going to be one of the most stacked teams in college basketball this year.
We'll get into another one of their players later.
Yep. And I already mentioned Tomislav. They had a couple of transfers come in. It is going to be a very, very tough year to face off against them, and Brad Underwood being the head coach, he's already came out and talked about some things as far as offensive I'm going to say like styles, or like what they're trying to do offensively, and using big ball handlers to draw 2 defenders, ball movement from there. But it's, the idea of playing more ISO and then create off of that, versus last year, where I'm just going to leave that last year where it was.
We don't need to talk about them last year.
Yeah. So Will Riley, We got like a 6'6", 6'7",
They list him at 6'8".
long shooting guard.
They list him at 6'8".
Is he?
They
Okay.
list him at 6'8" now when I was doing the research. So
Okay. I'll have to see what the last measurement one that I had, because I had the Basketball Without Borders, and then I had the another
I'm
one.
gonna bet you he's probably 6'7", but they might list him at 6'8" now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But point being, smooth shooter and semi-capable ball handler for his size. I don't want to say he's a good ball handler, because he's not good, but I think he's capable enough to create his own shot on the outside. Genuinely excited to see, because his shot motion just looks very clean, and I'm not a shot doctor. You are much more qualified for that as someone with some experience. My brain can't even make my hands, work right most times.
I've seen you shoot a basketball, so
it can't. My brain doesn't work that way.
It doesn't go great.
No, nope. But what do you think about Will Riley and us both having him here in this section? Like, it's a crowded team. Do you think he'll get the opportunity? Because there is Boswell, there is Kasparis, Siak Jonas, there is Will Riley, Trey White is on there, who is a ball dominant wing as well. And then they have a floor spacing center, and then Tomislav. Like, they got a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Is that a concern for you with Will?
I mean, that's always a concern, but honestly, when I'm looking at players in the draft, I'm looking for skill sets and tangibles. I'm not looking for their college numbers, because obviously there's been guys who average 20 a game in college and they don't last in the game. What's the guy's name? Washington, was it tiny guard? He was in the G League.
So many of them.
No, like tiny. No, like tiny.
5'8".
Yeah,
5'8".
Noel. Yeah, Noel. Whatever his name is, but he was like Jason Kidd in college, right? So I don't look for that. With Will Riley, I love his shot. I think he actually has a chance to be like the main shooter on this team by the end of the year. And that's what got me most excited. That's what got me most excited, and why I put him into the first round is if you have the size, the ball handling skills, which I'm not looking for advanced, but like if you're a tall wing who has capable ball handling skills, and then I like your shot as well, that's what boosted him up straight into the first round. And Kasparis getting him the ball on the wing is going to be fantastic. A lot of we kind of talked about it with Paul George for the Sixers, but a lot of playing off of the main action on the weak side, either in the corner or the wing, is probably where Will Riley's going to get a lot of his shots. And Kasparis, you'll hear how highly I think of him later. I think we both will like him. He'll be able to find him in those spots. So when the pick and roll is going on the strong side and he's on the weak side, that's where he's going to get most of his looks. And he is actually athletic enough where he can play the weak side corner and go cut and finish at the rim. I like his game. Like I truly think that he probably will stay in this 21 through 30 range for most of the year. Maybe he can jump up, but I think this is probably the range for him, the best for him. And honestly, I really, really like him.
Yep. Raw shooting wings. I mean, come on.
I love it.
That's what this year's all about.
I love it. Alrighty. Also, shout out the one guy I didn't talk about on my list was Donnie Freeman. I don't think you have him on your list.
I don't.
Yeah, Donnie Freeman.
Do you want to talk about Donnie Freeman?
Yeah, we can say, Syracuse. I'm a Syracuse fan. I think the shot is good enough. It'll see if it develops over the year. That's going to be his big thing, because he basically is a small ball 5 for us right now. But he's going to play next to Lampkin this year, so he's going to have to play some 4. We'll see how the shot goes. That's basically what it is with him. If his shot is average, I think he's a first round prospect, because uber athletic, 6'9", plays the small ball 5 in high school. That IMG team was not good this year. We'll see. We'll see this upcoming year. I don't think there's much to say with him. It's Syracuse fan holding out.
I'm less sold on him being a 4 and him being too small to be a 5. And
that's
there's like
valid.
There are 3 guys who are stuck in that like situation who are all top prospects in this class.
That's completely valid. But yeah, that'll wrap it up for 21 through 30. Let's move on to a 19 to 10. No, sorry, 20 to 11. I just did 19 to 10. 20 to 11. Dave, give me your 20 through 11.
Sure thing. At 20, I've got a returner in Hunter Salas. At 19, another returner in Milan Momosilovic at Iowa State. Both stayed, shockingly. Yeah. This was a situation where both were in the draft, both could have came out, both stayed. At 18, I've got Kanan Catchings. At 17, I've got Bogolyub Markovic. I can't say his name. Saved my life. 16, I've got Liam McNeely. 15, I've got Ian Jackson. 14, Con Knippel. 13, Noah Essingway. 12, Cam Jones. 11, Ben Seraph.
Alrighty.
Or Ben Seraph. I don't know if it's Seraph or Seraph. I've heard both now, and I'm just... Yeah. It's clearly one pronunciation off.
Yeah, all right. My list at 20, I have Rocco Zikarski. Sikarsky. I always want to say Sikarsky, like another white guy there. 19, I have Carter Knox. 18, I have Dink Pate. 17, I have Jaleel Bethea. 16, I have Cam Jones. 15, I have Drake Powell. 14, Ian Jackson. 13, Boogie Fland. 12, Kaman Malawak. And 11, Ben Serif. So there we go. We have the same number 11. Let's start at the back. Actually, let's start there. We both have Ben Serif at number 11, so that's a good place to start. What are your overall thoughts on Ben Serif?
I mean,
Saraf?
Who doesn't? Yeah, one or the other. And again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard both now, so I can't tell you. Maybe it's just lazy English or unlazy English where we pronounce every letter.
Yeah.
I like him as a secondary creator. He's playing a little bit of point guard, a little bit of combo right now. It's interesting because he gives me like crazy Manu vibes.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
And I love that already. We Agree podcast is back, baby. So he had one of the best performances at the U18 tournament. Absolute fire, like across the board. It was insane. The best game of the tournament happened with him. And oh my God, Nolan Traore, also a great tournament. We'll talk about him later. But
we'll talk about him.
That U18 tournament was basically a gold mine for European prospects. And watching him be able to not only create but shot make, play all three levels. Defensively, he's got active hands. He's not necessarily a great defender because he's not athletic enough to keep up when pressed on by either bigger guys or quicker guys. So he's going to be somebody who you're going to end up having to hide on defense likely, or pair with someone who can obviously cover up for that situation.
Yep.
But offensively, I mean, this guy just gets it. Like it is
everywhere.
Instinctual, and he is making all the passes you need to make. He's reading defenses. He's playing smart with the ball. Is he a little limited as far as using both hands? Yes, but he's still young. Like, and again, that's the thing. Like, these guys are 18, 19 years old. So I think the expectation is like for someone who has his level of production, especially at Ulm now, where it's like carried over. Like U18 tournament, I get it. You're playing against your peers, but going to play Ulm versus Portland Trailblazers, like B squad, and still holding up and having a really good game was impressive. And the crazy thing to me is, so far Ulm, every game has been like slow start, strong finish, slow start, strong finish. And he like goes off, whether it's fourth quarter, overtime games, like that's really when he shines. And it's almost like they're like holding him back a little bit, like let the team play. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, and go. And it clicks.
Yeah.
So really excited about him as far as just, I think he can be a top 10 prospect. There's just some guys maybe with more right now.
I find it funny because I have no spoilers, but you've only said one of my top 10 players, so I think we might have 9 players in common in our top 10. I don't know yet, or you just don't have one of my top 10 players on your board, which is also a possibility. Ben Serif, I knew nothing about him before I watched him against Portland, and you were telling me that OCD game where like they were cutting cameras and they were using
God,
that was the game.
Buy the TV rights because that was the worst game to watch. We gave it 4 minutes and we both were like, I can't look, my eyes are broken.
But I went back and watched the highlights of the main guys of Noah and him and Ben. Like you were telling me that you didn't know about his shot, and then I was watching him and I'm like, it looks fine to me. And I think he was 3 of 4 or 3 of 5, something like that in that game from 3. He does everything right? If the shot becomes elite, like I actually think it probably can. The sky is the limit for him, to be honest, because I think defensively he's solid. He has the ball skills. He's a good passer, and his shot looks fine. Like there's really no negatives. The only reason I don't have him as a top 10 prospect is because I really do think that there are 10 like above prospects like in this draft. I don't want to I don't spoil anything, but I think there are. I mean, the only guy that you've mentioned in my top 10, because no spoil, he's going to be there, is Noah and Essengay, who's also so we'll wrap him into this discussion as well. But Ben Serif, I just think he's a phenomenal player. I think there's really nothing wrong with him, and I think he's a pretty, he's kind of how I looked at Franz a couple years ago, is I think he's very safe, because I don't know, Franz is starting to hit that upper echelon of potential that we thought he might have, but even if Ben Serif doesn't hit that, I think he's an NBA player as current stands, and when you're 18, 19, and I already can look at you and be like, I think you're going to have a long NBA career, that's basically a top 15, top 12 guy for me already, and he just... Every intangible is right with him. I really don't see a single thing wrong with him.
Yeah. Going left is already game planned against for him. That's the problem. He only goes left, and he can dribble with his right hand, but he can't finish with his right. He will always bring it back to his left, and that is becoming a problem as it's been like, hey, this is 5 games in a row, 6 games in a row, where it's like defenses are starting to set up and hedge far enough. You know that like you will. When they played James Harden and played defense behind him, basically,
Yeah.
like to force him one way because they knew they're like, what are you gonna do about it?
But
kind
like,
of situation.
that comes down to coaching though.
Not that far sold.
No,
but
not
like,
that far. But like,
yeah.
it also comes down to the NBA game. It is very not easy, but it's more easily manipulative than international games, that you can find your way to your spot regardless. Like, you know exactly what half NBA players are going to do, but they still get to their spots. That's what makes them NBA players, right? But in international game, as soon as they deny your left, you're swinging the ball and cutting. Like, that's exactly how it goes. So
yeah,
I don't know. It'll be interesting more to see him go when he goes into the NBA game to see. We can kind of talk about Noah Essengate too, because we'll wrap them both in. I have him in my top 10. You'll see later where, but
and I had him just a couple spots. Where'd I have him? 13.
yeah, I mean, the big issues with him, fouling and turnovers. We'll see if those mitigate themselves a little bit. But basically
he's
everything
young,
else.
and I feel like he's still learning the game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And role wise, he's also kind of been tweener. He's played a little bit of 4, a little bit of 5, a little bit of 3. And I think, I'm not sure, one of the big things, I forget which podcast I was listening to where it's talking about, they thought he was like a 4 or 5 tweener, and he's like, he's not good enough to play the 4, and he's too small to play the 5. And I was like, I don't see that. I don't see him ever being a 5.
Yeah, I don't see the 5.
I think he's like a 3-4 tweener, and I think that the shot he hit a lot of in the game against Portland, but up to that point in the season, he's a bit of a gamble. It's an in progress, but you're gambling on the fact that he is just a smooth role player right now with upside intangibles.
Yep.
Because he moves really well for his size. I think he's got good enough ball handling skills for his size. I don't think he's gonna go out there and be like your primary ball handler at 6'8", but like I think he moves well with the ball.
Yeah, that was why I have him as a top 10 prospect, is his movement, right? I think he needs the game needs to slow down a little bit for him, which I think will happen. But when you're that size, was 6'9", I think is what they list him as, and you can move like that, I don't think he's a 5. I don't like that. Unless you're like playing against the Suns.
They were trying to hide him basically and say like, and again, I don't want to like whatever names are names, but like he marked him out as basically like he can't shoot well enough to trust as a 4, so he has to be a 5.
But again, my whole thing is
he's a kid.
Percentages aren't what I look at when I look at shooting. His shot isn't broken. Again, it's not like I look at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's going to take a complete restructure of his shot. Like the shot looks okay. I wouldn't say I don't think he's going to become like nowhere near the who was it that we were talking about earlier? Hugo. Like I don't think I have complete disregard that he could turn into like an average shooter. But again, if he's going to be this size and all the other things that he offers, he doesn't need to be an elite shooter. I don't know. I think his ball handling is above average for like what his role is going to be in the NBA. Because like you said, I don't think he's going to be an initiator. He's not going to be a primary ball handler. But as a secondary guy who can have actions run for him, I think he's fine. Especially the number one thing is going to be his team getting him downhill as soon as he catches the ball. If he's going straight towards the back, that's where he's going to be great. Because I think his passing actually is good. Again, like I said, though, once the game slows down for him, I think the turnovers will regress a little bit. That just has to happen. That's going to happen naturally over time. It's the same thing with Edey we were talking about. The game will slow down for him and the foul trouble will get better. We saw the same thing with Jaren Jackson Jr. when he was young too. You just got to get a year or two under your belt in the NBA. Some players like Wemby, it happens like that, and that's why they're number one prospects and all that. But most guys, it takes a year or two for the game to slow down. But dude, Noah has just about everything. If that shot can just come along a little bit, he's an insane prospect. He could easily be a top 5 guy by the end of the year if everything goes right, but that's top end potential. The other guy that we all both had was Ian Jackson. I had him at 14.
I had him at 15.
Yes, you give me your thoughts on Ian Jackson.
I think that as far as guys who finish at the rim from a guard position go, like he has that dog in him. Like, and I love that. Like he attacks the rim. He goes for whether it's putbacks or whether it's cutting. Usually top of the key stuff was in a lot of his game film, which is interesting because he's just crashing from completely left field basically. And it's just like, all right, he goes up and gets it though. So I like the way he plays the game. Shot standpoint, so far, okay. No red flags for me. I don't think he's elite. I don't expect him to shoot 40%, but he should be passable enough. But yeah, I think he's just a well-rounded guard, honestly, both ends of the ball. I'm curious to see, like, I had him, and the question for me, I was going between him and like Drake Powell. Like, I don't have Drake on my list, and I don't know
Wow.
And again, it's a partial omission
Yeah.
by me. Like I had him at some point and he slid out because of I was just throwing names in at some point.
But they're both so good
but
defensively.
Also,
I was gonna say
they're both great defensively. I don't know if Drake doesn't play with the same intensity sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that's my one thing. But also the role and playing time at North Carolina is going to be limited because they rolled back a lot of.
They're going to be real good.
So
they're going to be real good.
They're going to be a very good team. I don't know how much he's going to get to show, and that's one of the things where I know you're like I don't judge off points whatever, but I'm like if you just don't get on the court enough.
Yeah,
it's going to be very hard to take a swing. I mean, we have seen guys go with a couple minutes of playing time and bench players and that kind of stuff.
Kyrie got drafted number 1 with like 7 games. It's Kyrie.
Those were,
I know it's Kyrie. It's Kyrie. I know. No, I actually Drake Powell was the one guy I wanted to talk about, is because I think defensively he's elite, like elite defensively. Yep. Now, will that get him on the court for North Carolina? That's the question for you, right? His shot, he's definitely. I think he's more limited offensively than Ian Jackson, obviously. Yes. Ian Jackson, I don't think either of them like they're okay. This is gonna sound. I don't know if I sound. They're both athletic, but they don't scream crazy athleticism when I watch them. They don't
show it at least.
Yeah, exactly. They both just move super well. I really like Drake Powell. He was the kind of guy. He started lower on my board, and then I kept going back and kept watching a little bit more. And I'm like, I can see an NBA player there. I can see a guy who could play next to most people because his shot looks fine. He's not a guy who's going to be creating off the dribble really much at all. No. I kind of look more like a Dorian Finney-Smith, right? Like he doesn't have the length to be a 5 like Dorian Finney-Smith, but Dorian Finney-Smith is I'm going to catch the ball in the corner. If I have the shot, I'm going to shoot it. If I don't, take it back. That's his game. Yeah. Drake Powell has a little bit more ball skills than that, but he's still super limited, and I don't think he's going to get a big chance to show it on North Carolina, like you said. But
I was going to say, he gives me like Leaky Black vibes. Literally, again, I'm taking like former player, but like, that's exactly.
I liked Leaky Black too, so I mean that maybe.
I know, and like he was a really good college player. He was an incredible defender, and he worked on adding the shot. And I think he got some minutes last year actually for Charlotte.
Yeah.
So like I'm not saying like he's gonna be like a 4-year player in college, and it'll take that long. But I am saying like I think that a defensive stopper like him is going to take a lot on that end. Like Ryan Dunn didn't get drafted until his 3rd year.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think Powell's more advanced than Dunn was, though. I mean, even from my limited research.
Offensively?
Yeah, offensively for sure. But now apparently Dunn.
He's a step ahead.
Apparently Dunn is like can shoot now.
Well,
I don't know where that came from.
Not.
Well, we're not. It's the first NBA game. I know. I think Drake Powell's more advanced than he is offensively. I think, but defensively, Ryan Dunn was. I mean, dumb elite. Ian Jackson, like you said, very high rim pressure, and that's something that can translate pretty easily. I spoke about earlier about Noah getting downhill as he catches the ball. That's kind of the same thing for Ian Jackson because ball skills are limited, but defensively, again, he's just a monster. Like you said earlier for who was it? It was for Hugo again. Diving on the floor for loose balls. If there's a ball there, he's going to get it. I think of that when I think of Ian Jackson when I was watching him. Like, I use the word dog. You're going to hear me use the word dog this year. Ian Jackson is a dog. Like, he is a guy who you can plug on a team. Like, I kind of like – I think it'll be interesting, again, because Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, I have them literally 14-15. I purposely put them together, and I was like, I think they're good, but I don't know – I don't think the ceiling is, like, super high. So if you're going to take them, I think more of a playoff team is more inclined to take them because somebody like Ian Jackson on like Indiana would fit perfectly, right? That's exactly what Rick Carlisle wants. A guy who can guard 1 through 3 and can play the wing position, can shoot a little bit, doesn't need the ball in his hands because they want to put the ball in the hands of their guards. But then on defense, whatever you need, Drake Powell and Ian Jackson is there. I think Drake Powell can get into that too, but I would not be shocked if Drake Powell come next year is at North Carolina again, playing another year, but I don't think that's a detriment because like that happens.
No, it's not a thing. That's we're throwing darts at the wall right now, projecting the lineup and playing time. Yeah. I mean,
I just gotta say, shout out the fast break. We basically nailed every single lineup for the NBA this year, almost.
We're pretty good.
That's pretty good. Give me somebody you want to talk about on your list.
Let's go with Kenan Catchings. BYU. He is their 2nd best player on the team this year, expected after Jaeger. And I fully expect
we'll talk about him.
Jaeger Demon will hit in the top 10. But him being the number 2 on that team is huge. And him playing off of someone who has the ball handling skills and size mismatches that will be created is huge for him. And I think this is kind of like that bonus of like I talked about, Will Riley and Kasparis being the pairing.
Yeah.
And they should help each other kind of situation. I think this is going to work very much the same way. He is a 3-4 tweener, and he is long, athletic, good on backdoor cuts, good on putbacks, good shot, not enough of a handle to be like a scary threat all the way around. Like Noah kind of is like Noah's more filled out than him, but I think Kanan is like really good as far as like I don't know. He's someone who kind of fell off rankings a little bit, but
he's
I think
not on my list. Yeah, he's not on my list.
Yeah.
So
I'm very curious to see. He played the blue and white game for BYU, I think is what they call it. They're in-house. Looked really clean there, so I'm excited to see what he does to start the season. I think that he could show off a lot because he's got really good shot blocking instincts for a wing, which always is something that I love the idea of.
Yep.
If you can have somebody who can be affecting shots on the perimeter, huge bonus for your team.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know much about him, to be honest with you. So it's a good like 101. But yeah, I mean, shot blocking skills as a wing is one of the most important things. Like when you're talking about elevating a defense, because like Drake Powney and Jackson, I don't really look at them for that. I look at them more for on ball stuff. But it's like watching the Celtics with Derek White, right? Derek White and Drew Holiday. The reason their guards are so freaking good is because their shot blocking skills. So if you're a guard or a wing who has shot blocking skills, like we'll talk about that when we talk about Cooper Flagg, that is what separates defensively, because there's a lot of guys who can play good to elite defense on ball, but once you start making your impact off ball, I mean, like you've seen Paul George flip the switch kind of at 2021, 2022 on. He's like, I'm not as great as an on-ball defender anymore. Let me read passing. Like I'm sure if you have shot blocking skills and being able to read passing lanes off ball, like unless you're Ryan Dunn who can do everything, then you're kind of like, you know what I mean? You got to pick and choose. Yeah.
Everybody's got their areas typically. You're right.
But if you have both, that's what I'm saying. Like if he has both, then I'm sure he'll shoot
different
up boards.
Tier.
Yeah, he'll shoot up boards. Somebody that we're going to talk about. We can bring up the Carter Knox conversation now. I watched OT last year and I was huge on him.
You're the one who made me watch
Rod Wave Elite.
Knox.
Rod Wave Elite, man.
I'd say also Kanan from OT.
Kanan. That guy screams Boston. Kanan. That's Kanan. Look at the pick. I love Carter Knox. I think he's definitely limited. It'll be interesting to see him in Arkansas or Arkansas. It'll be interesting because they're usually a wing-driven, ball dominant guard system with like this. I'm going back to Kentucky because and the wings kind of get forgotten sometimes in the Kentucky system. We kind of throwing it all the way back. We saw it with Devin Booker, right? Like the wings kind of get, unless you're the Harrison twins. You're not getting the ball like
15 years.
Not 15 years. That was the Frank the Tank year. That could not. Frank the Tank is not.
2009 draft.
Almost let the. I gotta say, by the way, we're almost an hour into recording and nobody's scored yet. This is a record. But yeah, I think Carter Knox, uber athletic wing. We'll see defensively where he exactly stands, because it is so tough to tell straight off a high school tape what they're going to bring defensively unless they're above the tier. Carter Knox, the shot has to stay consistent. He's uber athletic, tons of rim pressure. We'll be interested to see how Calipari uses him and how much playing time he gets, because he definitely is raw as a wing. So it'll be interesting. I am a big fan. I get stuck into the fab of Rod Wave Elite. Their stuff is awesome. I'll be interested to see how he develops, but an uber athletic wing who can do a little bit of everything is kind of my calling card. Especially when you'll see in my top 10 offensive wings. Or
you want to talk about the opposite of an uber athletic offensive wing?
Oh God,
who's a uber unathletic offensive wing is Con Knipple.
Yeah,
he's not unathletic, but he's not athletic for sure.
He was at 25 on my board, so
yeah, I think that he deserves a shout out because he just can do everything offensively. Like it might not be pretty, it might not be standoutish, but like he just is good across the board. You can't ignore his offensive output. And again, their game, guess what? Guess who's scoring the points for them? He might end up leading points for that team, which happens to have a couple names on there that you might recognize in a hot minute. Yeah. I don't know. He just, everything about his game is on the offensive side. And I will continue to say the offensive side.
You going to talk about the defense, or are we going to ignore that?
We just don't.
We're going to ignore that part.
He's kind of everyone does the same thing.
Yeah, this is the lazy analysis, but he kind of reminds me of Corey Kispert without the defense, and that is a little bit worrying to me. I think he'll be a great college player. I have no doubts that this guy. I don't know. I know that this guy. I know you didn't like Kispert originally, so you have that vendetta. But in college, listen, Khan's gonna be the guy. He's gonna be scoring like I already watched their blue versus white. I watched they post 3v3 and 4v4 scrimmage practice highlights. Like he is there, and his shooting is elite, right? He's kind of like him and Liam McNeely. Their shootings are both absolutely elite, right? Yep. I think McNeely probably has a little bit more to his game defensively than Khan does. But Khan is, listen, he's going to be chucking that thing, and it ain't going to stop the entire season. And especially when you're playing off of somebody as good as Cooper Flagg and a big as athletic as
oh no, they got past me. Oh, I tried. Good luck.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. He's going to get looks. He's going to score points. He's going to make a ton of threes. He's going to be one of the best shooters in the country probably. So somebody will take him in the first round. It just, again, he is a guy that strikes me as like everything has to be right for his career to go well, because if he ends up on a lot of teams and his defense is as bad as I think it's going to be, it might be over right away.
I mean, he's somewhere in how far back do I want to take this? Like, could you see him being like a slightly shorter Kevin Huerter?
Yeah, I mean, Red Velvet had it though, so I guess we'll see. I don't know. Huerter wasn't as bad defensively until he fell off a cliff. Like he fell off a cliff after the 2021. I would know after 2021. Red Velvet killed us at Game 7, and then he fell off a cliff. So maybe he could.
But I mean, that kind of guy who can get hot and help your team win games. That's what I look like or that's what I look at him as.
Or is he Doug McDermott?
Dougie McBuckets could get up. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, but Khan can get up too. Khan can get up. It is so funny though, because I was watching Khan's AAU highlights, and it took me a minute to figure out who he was, because he just is this little stubby white dude, and he's just giving everybody the business.
People.
He's giving everybody the business. So I have no problem people rating him. I mean, I made him in my first round, but I have to see it. And again, it's a 1.0, but I have to see a little bit more about like defensively. If he can even be like slightly below average, we're there. I mean, we're there offensively. But this screams like the Warriors. And if they have like their pick might be high though, so I don't want to say that but like they scream like a team that uses a ton of off-ball movement. That's where he's going to have to end up, or playing off of a dominant guard who's a great passer, so like the Grizzlies or something like that, or Trae Young and the Hawks. Like something like that's going to have to go right, because if he ends up on a team that has like. If he ends up on the Blazers, he's probably out of the league in a couple years. You know what I mean? Or he's traded in a couple years. It's my only worry, and that's why when rating him, like I have to take that into consideration, that how large is their bust potential, and he strikes me as somebody who has. I'll see how he lays in the median right now.
Okay. I don't disagree with anything you put out there. I'm hopeful that he makes it work, and I'm just really going to enjoy that specific team in college.
Oh, they're going to be great.
Loaded.
They're gonna be great. I guess an interesting conversation. I'm assuming Dink Pate did not make your list.
No, he did. He was in my third section. Okay. He was 22.
Okay, you have 22.
He was right. He was right after Rocco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have him 22. I have him 18. He's playing for the Mexico City G League team, I think, this year. I think he's playing for them. He's interesting to me. All right, because like he is one of those players that I keep looking at, and I'm like, you have to be good. Like you have everything, right?
There's 6'8" ball handler.
6'8" ball handler who's athletic, who can move. Like you have to be good. So this year, Dave and I are sickos. We do watch the G League. We are sickos.
Last year was an absolute travesty of a season. Like, hey, let's go ahead and put together a team with no point guard, get a coach who can't coach, and just tell him, go play iso ball for a while and take turns. And Ron Holland had his run while Modest was hurt, and then Ron Holland wrapped it up for the season, let Modest run with the team for a little bit, and then Modest stopped playing, and then we got to see Dink Pate, who was 17 at the time, not draft eligible, run with this team, and it was basically him and I forget the wing who I really like, who ended up on the Timberwolves, I think. I'm blanking on his name. Leonard Miller was the year before.
Yeah, I was going to say Leonard Miller, but it's the year before. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I will.
I think like he has everything to be good, but this is definitely a guy who we have him on our 1.0s, and by the time we get to like a 4.0 or a 5.0, if he doesn't develop at the rate that we think he could easily be off the list. But I think I will say I do think even if he has a bad year, there's somebody that takes him in the second round at least, because there's just, like, listen, this is the guy, and we all have those guys that are still in the NBA that you refuse to give up on. And like Dink Pate strikes me as one of those guys. He literally has everything to be good. He's not bad defensively, doesn't have a bad shot. He's 6'8", like you said, is able to ball handle, is able to initiate. Like, this guy should be good. And it's frustrating watching him last year. I'm glad he made the decision to still stay in the G League, but to go to an actual team that actually builds a roster out.
Agreed.
And it'll be interesting. Again, wait and see. That's kind of where I'm at with him. Like I said, with a lot of people. Is there anybody you would like to talk about on your list?
Tyler Smith.
Okay. Oh God,
it was Tyler Smith. That was their other G League player.
Tyler Smith. Shout out Soapy. Soapy loves him.
In this section, Bogo. We can go Bogo Markovic.
Yeah, I don't have him, so yeah, you go.
Yeah. So 6'10", 6'11", center, who has a really highly polished offensive game. For his age, again, talking about a guy who was born in 2005, so it's not like he's like a 21-year-old sneaking into this class, kind of like the Zavonimir and brother, and like those guys are like 21. Like,
yeah.
You're not really part of the class, but he's born in 2005.
Super seniors.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, this is the 2005 class, by the way. Can we talk about that? They were born in 2005. Yeah. This is
wild.
Crazy. Sorry.
So Bogo played for Mega for the majority of his career growing up. He is someone who can shoot, pass, and score. Sounds a whole lot like other people, whether it's Şengün, someone who I really liked, Tomas Sabonis, somebody who I really liked.
You like Şengün?
Yeah, who would have known? Who could have seen that coming? But no, like he legitimately is like someone who will be able to stretch out. He's working on the 3-ball right now, but I think he'll be like a league average or close to it 3-point shooter by the time he's like in his prime in the NBA. So really excited about him as a player. Right now he runs really well with his size. He's not slow-footed, or he's not like a slow, big, like, who's the guy on Washington they signed for no reason? Their center.
Oh, Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, he's not, like, Jonas can shoot threes and play center. Not anywhere close. No. Bogo has size, he has speed, he has the ability to shoot a little bit from 3, good rebounder, good paint play. Defensively, he has a lot of room to grow, and that's just going to be nice. And I think it's someone who you should check out some games he's playing, because he is actually, one of the few guys who is young and able to be a highlight of his team. Last couple games in the ABA, 18-17-4, 17-10-4, 11-1-5, 12-7-2. Like, not to box score watch, but when you actually watch him play, like those raw numbers, he actually has an effect on the game. He actually is getting a large chunk of minutes to play and be a focal point, and he hustles his ass off. So I think he's someone who's probably not getting a ton of looks yet, but I think he will be on boards come draft time.
Yeah. Shout out to 2 players I just want to on my board, Boogie Fland and Jaleel Bethea. Absolute.
Yeah, did not make mine.
Absolute just bucket getters.
They're buckets.
Listen, if you have watched our previous content, I am a sucker for bucket getters. You'll see one in my top 10 that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but listen, Ian Jackson, not Ian Jackson, Boogie Fland. I was looking at my list. Boogie Fland, I don't know. I look at him as like better Jordan Clarkson. Like, he literally just gets bucket after bucket.
There's
after
a place
bucket.
for that in the league.
There is. I mean, Jordan Clarkson, if he actually, could stay consistent and efficient, would be probably on a contender, but he's still just wasting away in Utah. I just want to give him a shout out. I love bucket getters. They're some of my favorite players. And yeah, is there any final
Cam Jones?
Yeah, he's
Cam
at 16.
Jones.
He's at 16 on my list. What are your thoughts?
I love the man. I thought he was a first-round talent last year. I'm shocked that he stayed in college, but apparently that teams did not want all 3 players from Marquette to come out at the same time. So, Kolak, NBA backup point guard extraordinaire as a rookie. I expect he gets ball.
Cam Jones, campaign backup. You mean the backup
for how long?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, we watched that game in like 4 minutes, and we're like, you need to just bench campaign. Yeah. And then Oso Iguodala was the other counterpart at Marquette.
Yeah.
The 2 of them together ran an amazing offense, and Cam was mostly the successor of that. Like, he had some of the best looks in college, best shots, and he was one of the most efficient players in college basketball. And I think that's the biggest thing is, like, for someone who can take the volume that he's going to take, who can ball handle enough, who can score at the crazy rate he's going to score at, like, And he's built. Like, he's not like a thin, frail, like 6'3" guy. He's like 6'5" and strong. Like, he gives me Desmond Bane vibes. And I mean that in the most positive way you could possibly take it. Like, I am like that far in on him. I don't think he has T-Rex.
No. I was doing yeah. I
wouldn't be surprised.
I was doing the Bane thing. Don't worry.
Yeah. But no, I just think that like the crazy thing about Marquette, if you don't follow college basketball, for NIL being a thing it is, they did not.
Yeah.
They did not go transfer portal heavy. This is like the same guys they recruited. So they did not transfer portal. They did spend NIL money, but they didn't go transfer portal at all.
Yeah.
It's like this is just legit in-house talent, whoever they recruited. So a lot of similar faces around the locker room, and he's just going to be asked to step up and be more of the offense.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how like crazy high. I'm trying to find his stats, and I've got too many tabs. It disappeared somewhere.
You have a problem. I had him at 16. I really like his game too. I honestly didn't know that. I knew they were all at Marquette last year, and I thought, again, I had like limited knowledge from last year's. I was surprised he was also staying because he probably would have been a first-round pick. But I guess NBA teams do things on their own account sometimes that nobody knows why, like Desmond Bane falling to the end of the first round and all that kind of stuff, and Tyrese Maxey falling to 21, shout out, all that stuff. So, yeah. Alrighty. You good?
Yeah, just quick stat check for everybody at home. Yeah, he did Bane versus him. He took 234 threes last year, made 40%. Bane took 198, made 43%.
Yep.
Not too far off. 2-pointers though. Shot 57% from two.
He's real good.
Desmond Bane, 45.
Yeah.
Free throw percentage, also 72 versus 78. So like similar as far as scoring output, similar as far as expectations. For me, offense, like BPM is spot on between the two of them. Like I'm talking like this should be like the greenest of green flags for drafting an offensive like 2-guard. And I don't know what I'm not seeing here.
You think you're going a little bit crazy? Is that what it is?
I am, because I'm like, why am I so anti-consensus? Like what
That's
makes
good, though.
Other people be like, this guy is not an NBA draftable player?
Yeah, that's good though. It's good to be the alternative. But that'll do it for our 11 through 20. Dave, let's get into the top 10. Rattle off your top 10 for me.
Yep. My top 10 begins with so many tabs. Too many tabs. My top 10 begins with Trey Johnson. Then I go to Kaman Malawak at 9. VJ Edcombe at 8. Yegor Demon at 7. This is the guy I talked about earlier, JT Toppin, who is my surprise entry into the top 10. Yep. Dylan Harper at 5. Kasparis Yakachonis at 4. Nolan Traore at 3. Ace Bailey at 2. Cooper Flagg at 1.
So Dave doesn't have somebody on his list that's going to be my top 5. This is going to be the fun part.
My brain's going to explode because I'm like, how did I forget them?
So at number 10 is Kasparis Yakachonis. I don't know how to say his name.
Yakachonis.
Yep. Number 9, you said it's not Igor Demon. What is his name?
It's Yegor
Demon. So Kasparis and Yegor Demon at 10 and 9. Number 8 is Noah Essengay. Number 7 is VJ Edgecombe. Number 6 is Dylan Harper. Number 5.
Who did I miss?
Isaiah Evans. Number 4, Trey Johnson. Number 3, Nolan Traore. Number 2, Ace Bailey. And number 1, shocker, Cooper Flagg. Let's start. I have number 10, Kasparis. You have number 4. We both really like him. I don't think if you're in the top 10 in this draft, I think we think very highly of you. I don't think there's splitting hairs. Yeah. I think the top 3 is the top 3. We'll get to them. We have the same exact top 3. But yeah, Kasparis, again, elite creator off the dribble, great passer. We'll see the scoring game come along. Yeah. We'll see the scoring game come along a little bit. That'll be the little bit of the question for me this year. Obviously, he has the ability to do it, but doing it in college obviously is a little bit different. But being able to control tempo, play out of the pick and roll, play out of sets, be able to pass, basically make any pass you need to. He's just an elite prospect, right? I'll be interested to see, like you said, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Illinois team. So it'll be interesting to see because he'll be the main guy with the ball, I assume.
Should be the only asterisk is who I mentioned earlier, who's the transfer guard from Arizona, Kylan Boswell.
Yeah,
he's been he's a primary ball handler through and through. He does not have an off-ball game, so I'm a little concerned about that. But
Kasparis is so good, though.
He's going to learn. He's going to learn.
You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn because the best player needs the ball in his hands, and that's Kasparis. And he is just. I watched a bunch of his tape, and there's not a lot to dislike. Defensively, we'll see. Obviously, I think he's good enough right now. We'll see how it goes.
And again, he's got the size, so like he doesn't have to guard traditional 1s and 2s. You know, you can treat him like a garbage version of Luka. Like he should be playing ball in hand, create for others, offensive, gifted, and then defensively you hide him. And I think that like your team will benefit from that. So
yeah, just a great prospect. I don't know how much to say on him. He's just like he has such a great game all around, and it's such a translatable game to the NBA that's why we both have him probably top 10. I keep forgetting how to say this guy's name. You said Agor?
Jaeger.
Like Jaegerbomb. He's Jaeger.
Yep.
So Jaeger Devin, we talked about the second best player on BYU earlier, the best player on BYU. Give me your overall thoughts on how you see what you see this year.
Who doesn't love 6'9" ball handlers? Like let's continue to go with jumbo ball handlers is like the theme.
Yeah.
Who needs point guards in like these tiny 6'1", 6'3" point guards anymore when you can just get like 6'9" guys who can ball handle for you. He gets downhill, and I don't think there's any issue with how he attacks the rim or him being able to use his body physically to get downhill. The whole question marks around his game are entirely around like the consistency of his shot. He had a down year last year, but if you go back 2 years or 12 months, like anywhere from 12 months to 15 months, like you got to slice up some perspective, in my opinion. And am I looking for positivity? Absolutely, because he's a prospect. But the whole point is like, look, if he's not going to be Josh Giddey, or he's not going to be like, again, anybody who is that size and that creative passing vision offense is going to cook. And I think BYU is going to be well prepared and be a really top tier team this year because of the combo.
Yeah, they have Young, the coach from the Suns.
Yes.
As their head coach now. And they got giant NIL backing because they have the owner of Utah and Danny Ainge is also one of their NIL backers. So yeah, that's gonna be a program because they're trying to get wow, his name just escaped me.
AJ.
Yeah, they're trying to get AJ as well. So yeah, I agree. Everything you said. I know I love him, you love him, and Soapy loves him. Jaeger is, I mean, it's the trade. It's the what is the say? He can do everything basically. There's really nothing that of his game that screams out to me that is worrisome. And a 6'9" ball handler, like you said. I mean, that's the way the NBA is going, right? There's you have to be elite small guard now to be able to last because there's just so many big ball handlers that are, and that's the whole way the league's going. I mean, freaking Wemby's bringing the ball down sometimes, and he's freaking 7'3".
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like unless you're like a Donovan Mitchell or like something like that, a lot of the small guys are, and then they compensate with that with 2 7-footers down low. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way the NBA is going, and the teams like the Thunder and like the Celtics and big defenders all around the court, 1 through 5. It does not matter, and he fits straight into that. Like he is coming into the NBA at the perfect time to fit his game.
And it's a shame that he didn't get to play at the U18 tournament because he's from Russia. So like the biggest chance to spotlight before coming into the NBA or coming into the college season just didn't exist for him as a chance. So I think he's gonna pop into the scene and like instantly spike on boards.
Yeah. Let's move on to Kamal Malawak because he was at 12 for me. He's in your top 10. I'll start just. He is one of the like screams a player that I like. Like I love bigs who are movable, can stretch the floor, has good shooting motion, and is also probably an elite rim protector right away. He is everywhere. I think the game, again, I say this about a lot of prospects, you'll hear me say it all year long, is that it probably needs to slow down a little bit because he is a little bit, when you watch him play, erratic at times, which is honestly to be expected. I think Duke has a perfect program for him, and him playing next to Cooper Flagg and Isaiah Evans and all these players who are just like uber elite scoring wise. And Khan, like we mentioned earlier, his load is really just going to be about focusing on defense and rebounding. And I think that's going to be perfect for him. Because that's where, if he's going to make money in the NBA, that's where it's going to be. It's going to be his ability to block shots, grab rebounds, offensive rebounds, and finish at the rim. So screen setting is going to be the number one thing I watch for him because that's where, again, bread and butter in the NBA is such a heavy pick and roll league that if he can become a good to elite screener with his athletic build and his shot being okay, we'll see if how much he has to stretch the floor. I don't
charms the stretch moment.
But I don't know how much he's going to have to do it for Duke is my thing, right? I don't think he's going to shoot many.
The guess is Malik Brown's probably going to take the start from him to start the year, and we'll see if he ends up as like a closer or as the year goes on, they'll kind of figure out the rotations as it may. But like, yeah, I think he is not going to be expected to be taking threes. But we all got very hyped while watching, the Olympics and the pre-games. Because again, South Sudan got to play against USA, so we got to see him versus NBA all-time talent.
Yep.
And like in 12 minutes, he popped off.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's like, that's an NBA player. Like
You can
everybody
see
can be like, he's too raw, he's too this, he doesn't know the game enough. Doesn't matter. That guy can go out there on the same court as NBA players and be effective.
Yeah.
And that's at age 17, 18. So let's talk about him with a year under his belt at Duke, and then you're gambling 110% upside because again, he's the second or third center that we've listed in our top 30. So in the first round, there might be 2 centers that go like high value position and a high skill set as far as a legit 7-footer. We're not talking about a 6'10" guy or a 6'9" guy like the Derek Queens of the world who, yes, you have offensive skills, you're a great passer. Don't care you're 6'10". You're not big enough to be a true center. This is my shot blocker. This is the guy who's going to be in the paint and make people not want to go in the paint.
Yep. And,
there's money there.
And also has an offensive game where he's not super limited, which is what is so exciting about him. So I think his minutes will increase as the year goes on. Like you said, it's just Duke is very much earn the minutes unless you're like Cooper Flag. You know what I mean?
That's why I'm shocked, and not to jump ahead, but like Isaiah Evans, how many minutes was going to play like 3 minutes?
Listen. All right, listen.
You're just
but listen.
You're 112% in on a guy who's buried on a Duke team.
I don't care if he's buried. This dude, we'll get there. Hold on, I don't want to jump ahead because we have two prospects. No, you're good. So we talk. Edgecombe's next. I have him at 7. You have him at 8, I think.
Again, same story. It's recency bias, maybe because we got to watch him at the Olympics, but dude jumps off the page.
Dude.
And then you go back and you watch his high school stuff, and you're like, oh, that's just him all the time.
Yeah.
He is a gamer. He is defensively your worst nightmare. He will full court guard you and bother the out of you. Didn't swear.
Still 0.
And I truly believe, like, offensively, I don't think his shot is like horribly broken. I don't think he can create necessarily for himself, but I think as a catch and shoot guy and a backdoor cutter, and like he's basically just gonna be like the off-ball guy at Baylor, which I know typically, recently, historically, I'm not a huge fan of those guys. If you look at the last 2 draft classes and the guys who've come out of Baylor, I've had issues with them, but I do think that VJ is just different. Like he is a elite athlete, and I don't know if that describes him well enough.
I think it's almost disingenuous just to say, right, that he's an uber athlete. Like, and I think the reason that I have him at 7, I know some people have him higher, and it's not his on-ball creation is very minimal, and that's my only concern. But if he ends up on a team that has already their creator at point guard and maybe another scorer on the wing, he is like, I'm going to plug you in the lineup. You're going to make some shots for me, but then you're going to go guard the best player on the other team every single night, full court, pick up, have that dog, and literally just be, like you said, their worst nightmare on the other end of the court. I love his game. I honestly like, he's so much fun. Who was next on your board? Was it?
I had Jaeger.
Okay, we talked about him. After Jaeger, was it Dylan Harper?
JT Toppin.
Oh, yeah, JT Toppin. I don't even have him on my board. So we both have somebody in our top 10s. That isn't on our board.
Mine actually is going to get minutes because he got minutes last year. He is a sophomore breaking into the top 10.
Yeah, I had him. He's at 36. I did watch his games. He's at 36.
Okay.
So he.
Okay. I'm interested to know 36, but I'll go my spiel first, and then I'll let you hit yours.
Yeah.
So we have a guy who can play the 4 and defend 5s. He can defend the paint. He's got great defensive instincts. As a team defender, I think New Mexico was elite last year. Obviously, it was him, Donovan Dent, were the 2 big pieces on that team. Both obviously left. So, unfortunate for them. He's going to Texas Tech. Should be a really good team this year for him. But, like, his size, being able to stretch the floor, shoot threes legitimately, be defended there, but also he can work in the paint. He has, I don't think 3 level, but 2 level scoring. You know, he's in the paint or he's at the 3-point line. And he can nail those standing shots. He can nail catch and shoot shots. I really think that like he is someone who defensive 3-and-D player at the 4-5. Like that's one of the highest values as far as me looking into like if I'm building a team. Those guys don't typically exist.
Yeah.
Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is like the god tier, and like I think that JT Toppin is under the same profile. Yeah, that I'm
I
just
get
so
it.
high, and everybody
get
wants to put like, as far as these 4 or 5 guys, I'm like, y'all think Colin Murray Boyles is like the best defender? Da 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 da. It's
No.
like 6'7". Like, no, JT Toppin's like here.
I don't like either of them. So let's let that out there. So at least I'm consistent.
Okay. Yeah. What's your hatred of?
I don't.
Not
Okay.
hatred.
Okay. Not hatred.
I know you
okay?
don't hate him. I know. I'm just,
Let's not create that narrative yet. I do think I don't buy into the shot as much as you do. Maybe that might be my reasoning. Very low volume last year from jump shot perspective.
only 30.
Yeah.
32 threes taken last year.
So
Yep.
very low volume. So we'll see if that increases. Maybe that'll get me to change my mind.
Yep.
When I watched the tape that I did of him, I think he moves okay, but I don't think he moves as fluently as some of the other guys. Like when I watch Malawak play, I see a lot more fluid movement, able to move his feet quicker, quicker hips on defense. Like that's the kind of stuff that I see. I just think JT Toppin's a little bit more limited when I was looking at. If that 3-point shot with a little bit more volume comes up, then maybe my mind could change to become a first-round prospect. But I was kind of like comparing him and Rocco. That was kind of where and Rocco obviously does not have the step-out game at all. But I think I like Rocco a little bit more. I know that JT shot very well percentage-wise in total. I think he was one of the best field goal percentage shooters in the NCAA last year.
Correct.
So that's not shocking to me.
Incredibly efficient. Yeah.
I just worry a little bit about the translating, and I'm not sure how much I buy into him being an elite defender right off the bat. So that's kind of why, and maybe that's controversial. I don't know.
It is for me because he was one of the best defenders in college basketball last year.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about translating. I'm not talking about his college game because I don't have any problem with him in a college game. I think physicality and speed might be a little bit of a problem for him when he gets to the NBA level. And that's just it's not a hatred. Don't worry, it's not a hatred.
Nope.
I fear a little bit of limitation when and I said the same thing about Rocco. So I fear both of them a little bit. I think Malawak's like the only center that I look at in this draft, and I'm like, okay, he looks like
he's not a center. He's a power forward.
Yeah, but
JT Toppin's power forward.
I know, but
He's 6'9".
I'm saying that I think I don't like that because I don't think he moves well enough to be a 4. That's my worry. That's my worry with him. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe I'm BSing out of my. But like that.
No, that's fine. I'm just that's where I landed on him. Is I think that he adds a 4, gives you that like weak side rim protector.
That he
as
does.
far as defense,
I'm not
and
down with
like
that.
if he can continue, you're right. Volume was low, but like that team, no offense, was full of chuckers.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Let's say, I mean, Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn, and
Jamal Mashburn was
Nelly Joseph Jr.
Jamal Mashburn was
Jr.
getting those shots. He was. Yeah. So
the shots weren't there for him. We'll put it that way.
I get it,
but
and that's why it's a wait and see, right? This is why it's a 1.0 because if he starts getting that volume up and he's an average 3-point shooter
let's go.
on 2 or 3 attempts a game, then we're talking. Then we're talking. I think now the next guy is Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing
Dylan Harper. Yep.
Yeah, the only thing with me and Dylan Harper, and this might be, I am a little bit worried about knee surgery as a senior in high school. That is a little bit worrisome for me. That is like, I mean, again, it could be nothing. It absolutely could be nothing. He could prove me wrong, and he could shoot right back up to 4 on this list by the end of the year.
That's some Cam Whitmore kind of juju you're putting out there.
I'm just saying it's a little bit worrisome to me. I don't know how you feel, but it's a little bit worrisome to me.
No, I legit didn't know he had it until they came out during their like Rutgers in-house game, and you mentioned it. I was like, wait a minute, what? I didn't even read anything, and I was like, I went back. Okay, he did have a little surgery. He's still a very smart player. He's wide for a guard. He's I don't, big's the wrong term, but he's wide and he's well built.
Bottom built. What is the lower? Oh no, lower half heavy, something like that.
Yeah, lower half heavy. He's a thick boy. But I just don't know. He's an elite prospect, obviously. Everybody's got him. We have him
at 6, and you have him at 5.
5.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 5 and 6, and he had knee surgery as a senior in high school. That should tell you how good he is, right?
He's just so good at getting paint,
dude. It is literally like his point. People talk about it's a almost a trigger word for me at this point. Point of attack defense, because everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. How about point of attack offense? Harper is one of the best guys I've ever seen coming out of high school doing it. He kind of like, not player-wise, but when I watched John Wall back in high school and early college, his ability to get to the paint and constant rim pressure all the time was his best trait. That is what I see when I look at Dylan Harper. But he also can score at other levels. It's not like he's only a rim guy. That's what makes him so elite as a prospect, is that, I love him. I mean, him and Ace Bailey both on Rutgers, they're going to be absolutely ridiculous this year. They're gonna be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah,
I like the fact that we got pairings. Like, think about it. That's
yeah,
Cooper Common. We've got Ace and Dylan. We've got Kasparis and Will Riley.
yep.
We've got Jaeger and I've got Kanan. Like Ben Seraph, no Essinway. Like, it's teammates.
Yeah.
It's the year. It's the double up here. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, I like it. But it's not much. People get it on Dylan Harper. He is a phenomenal player.
He's great, yeah.
And he could easily shoot
one of the
back
smartest
up.
players in college basketball as a freshman.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I forgot to
wild.
mention. That's what I was going to say is like his ability to create space and also run through space while also being like, how I mentioned a couple of times the game slowing down. The game does not need to slow down for him. He's already there. That's what makes him so elite. Like, he's going to go onto a team right away and be able to be a secondary ball handler and a primary scorer and also creator for a team. Like, I look at him in terms of a role, not as much as Paolo for the Magic, but like being that maybe like Franz, a secondary guy for a team who can create, but also can score at all three levels and can create his own shot. That's what I kind of look at him right away. Now, I don't know if he'll have hopefully he doesn't have the 3-point fall off that Franz has had so far, but yeah.
Let's hope. I do think the funny thing, I don't know if you've heard it, people were comping him to big Jalen Brunson as far as a play style.
And yeah.
Jalen Brunson took a leap of leaps. Yeah. But I see the same way that they are both downhill creators and like
absolutely
both have pace of game control. Like they know exactly what they need to do when they need to do it.
I don't think he could be as much as like a primary ball handler like Brunson was in the playoffs right now. But maybe in 4 or 5 years when we're talking, he could. I mean, he could. All right, the next guy on my list we'll talk about is Isaiah Evans, my number 5. Listen. Showtime is him. All right. I don't have, you hear all my basketball breakdowns from the players before, and I'm talking about pace of play and creation and 3-level scoring. Listen, I watched Isaiah Evans multiple videos, and the fact that every single time he scores, he turns around to the crowd and starts talking endeared me to him immediately. Listen, he is a 3-level. People compare him to Brandon Ingram because he looks just like him. But 3-level scoring is there. His shot is fluid. It's amazing. We'll see how much run he gets on Duke because, like you said, they have so many guys.
Dude, can I read off their
roster? I know. They have their roster is ridiculous. I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 5 pick in this draft right away or this year, but I'm telling you there is a player. There is a player there, and when I talk about bucket getters, he is the number. Listen, analytics out the window. Screw all that. This guy, I give him the ball, and I have confidence that he's going to create a look for himself, and he's going to score. He is the kind of guy that at the end of a game, I go, all right, we're putting the ball in your hands and go to work. I've done that multiple times as a coach. I go, what do you want, an ISO or a screen? Whatever he wants, he gets, and we go and play. That's what I give to Isaiah Evans because I honestly I probably spent the most time watching him just because I enjoyed every single minute of watching him, and that's probably why he's super high for me. I understand he's probably not going to go in the top 10 in this draft. I understand that. That's like you with Toppin. Toppin's not going to go top 10 in this draft.
Nope.
But in our hearts, they could be top 10 and top 5 prospects. High. Listen, everybody has their guy every year. Isaiah Evans and Trey Johnson are probably my 2 guys that uber athletic wings who move so well, have ball handling skills, and can score at all 3 levels.
I can be a flamethrower, yeah.
I love both of them. And Isaiah Evans, I understand if people aren't fully in because of his situation at Duke and all that. But man, there's no way you can watch him play basketball and not smile. That is literally how I feel. Dude, Slim Showtime is him. He is just him. I don't have basketball analysis for this one.
Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, Con Knippel, Sion James, Cooper Flagg, then Isaiah Evans.
Yeah, it is what it is, though.
So he's 3rd or 4th at every position.
Yeah,
as far as where we expect him. Even if Duke went super big across the board and played Malawak and Brown and they rolled Coop at the 3,
I'm just saying that the lineup of Evans, Con, Proctor, Flagg, and Malawak would do work. We're going to see it at some point this year, I assume.
I would almost swap out. I would swap out Con for James.
Yeah.
He runs and he's a transition monster.
I think Isaiah Evans could be that too, though. I think Isaiah Evans could be that too because he is quick and he's big. Sorry, I love him so much. I love his game so much. Let me preface that. I think everything about him I love. I think we'll see. He probably will fall throughout the year just because playing time, like you said, and shots. But like it's kind of the same thing you said with some of the other prospects earlier. Is like, listen, like Cam Jones, shots. He probably is going to get way more shots this year. Cam Jones. So
Cam Jones is the offense.
So that's what I mean. Like if Isaiah Evans goes elsewhere next year and he comes out as a sophomore after a year where he has the shots, then we'll see.
Yeah.
I just love
Or
his
Caleb Foster falls off, that could happen too.
Yeah.
Like Caleb Foster didn't have the best first year reports so far. He's better this year.
Yep.
Proctor looked pretty good in the early scrimmage and games. So I'm expecting both those guys to be like locks in there, but there's a chance. There's a chance.
Yeah, so we have 4 guys left to talk about. First one's going to be Trey Johnson. I love him. I already said. You give me your thoughts on him.
Yes, I had Trey Johnson at 10. I think he is. I know. I think he's good, but I've seen some gameplay where if the shot's not falling, what are you doing for me?
I get it.
And the answer is you're not. You're not doing, and you've shown you're not doing, and that's a bit of a problem for me sometimes. So I think flamethrower shooter, like I said, you already know that he's a 3-level scorer. I think he's one of the best offensive players in this class, and I think that like his athleticism separates him from guys who we gushed about like Con Kniffel being like offensively gifted, but let's not talk about the rest. Like no, this is Trey Johnson can be a 2-way player if he wants to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of my asterisk.
I'm totally valid. I definitely lean towards, and you'll see my big boards throughout the years. If you're an athletic scorer, I'm in. Like I will find a role for you. Like when I mentioned Jaleel Bethea and Boogie Fland on my list as well, right? Absolute bucket getters. They don't have much else to their game, but they will get buckets. Isaiah Evans, I don't
value that as much,
but I do. That's why it's great, right? That's why a big board's great because really, but it's different. Like when I look at centers, I look at defense more, right? Defense and movement. And then when I look at wings, when I'm looking at guards, I'm looking at the ability to initiate like Kasparis, right? But when I'm looking at wings, listen. If you're athletic,
this is a wing class. This is the wingiest of wing classes.
When you're a wing and you're athletic and you can get buckets, listen. I don't really care what else your game is. I am in. But that's what Trey Johnson is. We'll see how the game develops over the season. I think he's probably going to be a top 10 guy this year, though. Like, it's very hard for me to see a scenario where he's not going top 10 because he's going to have the ball a lot and he's going to have the shots available to him this year. Which, like you said, flamethrower. That's my cup of tea. Yep. That is my cup of tea. But yeah, into the top 3, we have the same exact top 3 in the same exact order. We'll start at Nolan Traore. I'll start with him. He is a little scary because French point guards are scary.
There's a bit of a sour taste in our mouth.
But he is different than the other ones I think that we've seen, especially shout out Killian Hayes. I think he's probably the smartest guy in the class in terms of like ball handling and creation and just IQ in general offensively. His ability to run an offense already at his age is insane. His shot's great. He can score at all 3 levels. And also his change of pace is the number one thing for me that is great. Is his ability to change his from first gear to third gear and third gear into second gear when he's maneuvering through a pick and roll, he's maneuvering through a screen, whatever it is. He's just fantastic. Like defensively, there might be a couple of question marks for him just because he does so much offensively that he might have to hide him a little bit defensively when he comes into the league. Not like that he's a bad defender, but that workload is so massive early on that we'll see there. But offensively, like you can plug him into an offense as your initiator right away, and I think he'll thrive.
Yeah. Not only, but like one of the only criticisms of him is how right hand dominant he is.
Yes.
I know he can bounce a basketball with his left hand, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot to it. And again, super young, not really concerned about, that yet. If it's 10 years in and he still can only use one hand, maybe it's a problem. But what he's doing is fantastic. And the high assist ratio is crazy, but he also the high assist numbers are great, but the ratio to turnovers is scary at times.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and watched a couple games. And it's a combination of things. Some of it, and again, I'm on the outside. I don't know what play, they're trying to run or what set they're trying to go through. Sometimes it's just he's on a different page than his teammates and the ball goes to where they should be. The quality of passes look good though, for the most part. If anything, it feels like he's leading people to where they should be for an opportunity sometimes, and they're not there, or they stop moving and like it ends up being like a reach for something in a tip ball kind of situation. Like he's got to clean up the turnovers. Point being, like he is such a good passer, and his assist numbers are gaudy. And I think that that's really it. It's just play a little bit more controlled, maybe take it down half a notch, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because like you don't need to average 20 and 10.
No. My only worry for him is I think the situation probably does matter a little bit. I worry for him if he ends up in a place like Washington. I don't.
Dude, can we just give the Spurs him?
Yeah.
So
we all
can
want
just
the
have
Spurs
the
to have
French
him.
connection.
I'm just saying this kind of prospect, like Killian Hayes in Detroit. Obviously, Killian Hayes just wasn't good. But it can be a little bit of a worry when you end up in a scenario that has bad coaching. And I said Brooklyn. I would love him in Brooklyn. Him and Cam Thomas would be amazing.
That would be.
So we'll
be a
see.
great
We'll see
pairing.
with him.
Yeah.
Top 2, Ace Bailey. Number 2, we watched his game against St. John's and just
Hooper.
there's not a lot he can't do. 3 level again. Ability to beat defenders is easily there. He's big. He can create. He can shoot over top of people. Like there was a couple shots in that St. John's game where there's a defender in front of him. He's like, I don't care. I'm just gonna shoot over you. Like, what are the negatives for him? You think?
He makes the game more difficult than it needs to be.
Yes.
Like this man is his own worst enemy. He wants to take tough shots, it seems like sometimes, where it's like, I don't know if it's an ego thing. I don't know if they said something to him, but sometimes he really is just like, no matter what, I'm taking the shot. And there's no reason or rhyme or whatever. Like there could be like 15 seconds on a shot clock and he'll just pull up on somebody in like 1 foot contention and it doesn't matter. He'll just do. And I think people are so afraid of that shot selection. I'm like, you can coach shot selection. You can get guys to buy into like, this is how we're going to win games. He played on a less than ideal team in high school where he carried the offensive load.
Yep.
And I fully expect him and Dylan to do the same exact thing at Rutgers and be a 2-man offense. Like if one's not doing it, the other one has to. And that's period. The rest of the team is not good enough to win games without both of those guys going for like 18 to 20, you know? So I fully expect him to contest for the first overall pick. I think his offensive game and size and athleticism, front offices will, owners might be screaming at their front offices that like this is the next superstar pick of the draft, where Cooper might not have the same shine to him all around game. And I think that Cooper's defense is great. I think Cooper's offense is great. I don't know that, I think Ace Bailey might have moments that shine and shine brighter. And I think that's sort of going to be the game of like, what are you going to do? You're going to take the guy who, is defensively maybe one of the best players we've seen since Anthony Davis, or you got to take the guy who like looks like T-Mac reimagined, you know?
Can you imagine Ace Bailey and Cam Thomas on the same team? They would just.
Okay, you know what I said about coaching bad shots out?
Yeah,
you cannot do that.
Yeah, that would.
You cannot have both of those.
That
guys
would just be bad.
on the same game.
I Ace Bailey, Cooper Flag. It's really the offense versus the defense thing, right? Like Ace Bailey, Cooper Flag is still great offensively. That's not the issue, and Ace Bailey is still good defensively. That's not the issue. But they're both elite at opposite things. So I think for me, unless something goes terribly wrong, I don't think Cooper Flag is going to move from that number 1 spot the entire year. I just think like the number 1 translatable thing in the NBA is defense. That is the number 1 thing when you go and you watch guys in college. If they're good defenders, they usually translate, right? That's usually what happens, unless you're Colin Murray Boyles, because that thing is not translating. Flag is just like, man, there's not much negative to say about him. His ball handling, his creation will be a little bit of a question against taller and quicker defenders. I don't know how much of an issue he's going to be in college because that team is going to have so much space to operate with how much talent they have. It'll just be where he ends up in the NBA. Like there are certain scenarios that I don't want any of these guys to end up in, and that's Washington. I don't want any of them there. I don't like Washington. Portland hopefully will fire Chauncey and be a little bit better off. That's the hope. But like, I don't know. Yeah, Cooper Flag is just like. Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey, I think they both have the chance to be superstars. Like, they are both. And
yet, we've been taught for year after year that 1, 2, 3, someone's going to fail.
I'm telling you, it's Nolan Traore if he ends up in a bad situation, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, man, it's tough because it's like Cooper Flag, like you said, there are no holes in his game. He's a good enough shooter. He's a good enough, like he's an above average passer. A lot of people are saying like they're comping him to Jason Tatum in college, or like a super Aaron Gordon, basically, as far as like what he could be. And you got, again, I said it, like literally I don't know if maybe that was hyperbole, but I was like, can you think of a better defensive prospect between him and Anthony Davis? Like, I don't think that anybody in between has been coming into college with the same level of just out the gates. I got it.
Well, Cat was that guy, to be honest, because Cat was the defensive monster at Kentucky, and then apparently I just love we talk about it all the time. It's one of my favorite stories. Like defensive monster, and then they get him to workouts, and they're like,
why has this man not been allowed to shoot the ball?
Yeah, so probably since AD though, because Cat was not better than AD, so it probably since AD. Zion was also a defensive monster, but that's just because jump out Jim.
He jumped from the paint to the 3-point line and blocked a shot in front of everyone and blew our minds, and we were collectively.
So they're both super elite. I think the top two set. I think probably the top three set, but I could see. Yep. Listen, if Dylan Harper or Trey Johnson gets absolutely flame throwing at some point, I could see Nolan Traore maybe sliding down a spot or two. But I whatever you have, Cooper Flag or Ace Bailey, I don't think that's moving the entire year. It's one of those two.
I think Kasparis has a chance to go 3. I think that if he puts up like 15, 6, and 5, and on decent shooting splits at Illinois, like that's going to be tough.
Yeah. It's a great draft class, though. It's going to be a great year to break it all down the entire year, because there is, not like last year, there's so much talent in this draft. Shout out last year.
Here's the crazy thing. Last note from me. I have a lot of upperclassmen in my draft class. Yep. I've got a lot of international players in my draft class.
Yep.
I have tape on them.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable working with tape and numbers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids in high school who look amazing.
Yep.
I really need to see them show me something in college. Yeah. And I think that's
the hard
coming into this. I fully expect, like we were laughing about like a 1.0s in past years. And I was like, man, the percentage of guys who fall off. And like, if you look at last year, you look at the year before that, how many guys in the top 30 for like rankings actually make it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is a ugly list.
It was you and Ricky back in the day did a way too early, and somebody was in like was number 1, and they were, I don't remember who it was, but they turned out to be awful. I can't remember who it was, but that's how it happened. No, I'm talking about the player. It's like that. That's
the player.
That's what happens, right? You get to the college, and a lot of stuff changes. Yep. Like when you see us in like 2 months, a month or two from now with our 2.0. It's probably going to drastically change. So, Any final thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there before?
No, I'll really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, that was only the first one, and that's once we actually get tape on these high school guys in college, that's when everything changes. But so the draft room will be every other week from us. The other weeks will be the NFL draft room. So tune in if you follow the NFL as well. Our mock drafts will be on the fast break, I believe, this year. I think that's how we're doing it. So that's how that's what I was told. So
I'm gonna nod my head and agree. I'm not 100% positive either.
Okay, that's what I think it is. But anyways, we'll have mock drafts, we'll have big boards. Dave and I will be covering college all year long, international ball, all that with topics through the draft room every other week. The fast break is posted every single week. Our predictions are up. Dave and I will be back on Monday talking about the NBA and the first week. So
reaction time, baby.
Overreactions of week 1. Again, down below in the description, check out that Patreon. You can watch all of our recordings for all of our shows live while they're getting recorded, and hop in the chat as well. The Discord is also down below. That is free to join. Hit that subscribe button if you made it this far. Please leave a like. Also hit that bell to get notified every single time that we do post a video. And also leave a comment calling us out. Give us your top 10 of your 1.0. Tell us who your people are. I have Isaiah Evans. He has Kasparis, who he's really high on. Everybody has their people. That's the fun with the draft stuff. Hopefully there's no Sharif Cooper incidents this year with a guy literally is just not good at basketball. But yeah.
He is good at basketball.
For Dave, for me, for the first episode of the Draft Room back. It's good to be back. Thank you for watching, and I hope everybody has a great day.
As always, we'd like to thank the people that make these videos possible, our patrons whose names are displayed on the screen now. If you would like to become a patron, go ahead and click the Patreon icon in the bottom right. And if you'd like to check out another video from MVP Sports, hit the video in the upper left. As always, thanks for watching.